Marcus Hale lived alone on a large, quiet ranch at the very edge of human territory. His house stood in the middle of endless dry fields, where the wind carried only the sound of rustling grass and old wooden fences shaking softly. For years, nobody visited him, and Marcus preferred it that way. After the long Galactic War, silence was the only friend he trusted. Every morning he woke up before sunrise. He made simple coffee, walked around his ranch, checked the fences, fed the animals, and repaired anything that needed fixing. No alarms, no orders, no soldiers screaming, only peace. Only silence. People in the nearby town called him the Ghost. Captain. They said he left the army without saying goodbye. They said he lost too many friends, too many battles, too much of himself. Marcus never corrected anyone. He didn't care. The world could believe whatever it wanted. He had nothing left to prove. One cold evening, something unusual broke his peaceful routine. Marcus was sitting on his porch, sharpening an old knife out of habit. The sky was dark blue, the wind colder than usual, and the ranch lights flickered twice, something that almost never happened. His security system was old, but it was reliable. Flickering meant movement. Movement from something not registered. He frowned and slowly stood up. Maybe it was an animal. Maybe a broken sensor. Maybe a storm coming. But Marcus felt something strange in the air. A feeling he hadn't felt in many years. Danger. He walked to the barn with a flashlight in one hand and his knife in the other. His boots crunched on the dry soil. The ranch was silent, almost too silent. Even the animals were restless, shifting. In their pens, their breaths loud in the cold night. The flashlight shook slightly in his hand, not from fear, but from a strange tension building inside him. His soldier instincts were waking up again, warning him that something wasn't right. When he reached the barn door, he stopped. There was breathing inside. Light, shaky, and not human. Marcus slowly pushed the barn door open. It creaked loudly across the empty ranch. The flashlight beam cut through the darkness, and the moment it landed on the far corner, Marcus froze. 11 shadows stood inside. 11 figures, all tall, all thin, all trembling. He took 2 steps forward, the dirt shifting beneath his boots. Figures moved back, pressing against the barn wall. They were scared, terrified, some covering their faces, some holding each other tightly. Marcus raised the flashlight and finally saw them clearly. 11 alien women. Their clothes were torn, their feet bleeding, their hair messy with dust and sand. Their eyes, large, glowing, and full of fear, stared at Marcus as if he were some monster from their nightmares. Marcus's voice came out rough, unused to speaking to people. "Who are you? What are you doing on my land?" The women didn't answer. One of them gasped for air, almost collapsing before 2 others held her up. Marcus noticed how thin they were, as if they hadn't eaten for days. One of the women slowly stepped forward. She looked older than the others, maybe their leader. Her hands trembled as she lifted them to show she meant no harm. We seek shelter," she whispered, her voice breaking with exhaustion. "Please, we have nowhere else to go." Marcus lowered the flashlight a little. He scanned their faces, all tired, all desperate, all afraid of him, but more afraid of something else. Something outside the ranch. He took a breath. "You're trespassing," he said in a calm, firm voice. "Why come here? Why my ranch?" The leader swallowed hard, her eyes filling with tears. "Because," she struggled to speak, "because humans once saved our people. We heard one of them lives here, a war hero, a protector." Marcus stiffened. He wasn't expecting that. His past, the one he spent years trying to bury, had somehow reached these strangers. The leader continued, her voice shaking. "They destroyed our homes, our families, our husbands. We walked for days, hiding, running, until someone told us about a human soldier who lived far from towns, someone who would help." Another widow stepped forward, her voice choked with fear. "Please, We beg. You, don't send us away. They're hunting us. Marcus felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Who? He asked quietly. The barn became silent. Even the animals outside stopped moving. Then the leader whispered a name Marcus never wanted to hear again. The Bone Collectors. Marcus's jaw clenched. His hand gripped the flashlight tighter. He knew that name. He fought them once in the war. He thought they were gone forever. But if they were hunting these women, then this was not an accident. This was not random. This was danger coming straight to his door. For the first time in years, Marcus felt something he thought he had lost purpose. He looked at the widows again, shaking, starving, eyes begging him for safety. Marcus exhaled slowly. Come with me, he finally said. You can stay in the house for now. The widows stared at him in shock, as if they couldn't believe a human would help them. Marcus didn't smile. He didn't promise anything. He simply turned around and walked toward the house. Behind him, the 11 alien widows quietly followed. Stepping into the warm light of the ranch home, they didn't know it. Yet Marcus didn't know it yet. But their arrival would change everything. The silent ranch was no longer silent. Something dark was coming for them all. Marcus opened the door of his ranch house and stepped aside. The 11 alien women entered slowly, almost afraid the warm air would disappear if they walked too fast. Their feet dragged lightly across the wooden floor, leaving faint marks of dust and dried blood. Inside the living room, the soft orange glow of the heater lit their tired faces. For the first time since Marcus saw them, they didn't look like shadows or ghosts. They looked like survivors, scared, thin, but still standing. Marcus walked to the kitchen, filled a large metal jug with water, and placed it on the table. Drink, he said simply. The widows hesitated, unsure if the offer was real or a test. Finally, the youngest among them stepped forward. Her hands shook as she lifted the cup, sipping the water slowly, as if afraid it would vanish. A moment later, the others followed. Marcus stood with his arms crossed, watching quietly. He wasn't used to people in his house. He wasn't used to company at all. The clinking of metal cups and the quiet breaths of the widows felt strange, like sounds from another lifetime. After they drank, he pointed toward the spare room. You can rest there for now, but none of them moved. They looked at each other nervously, as if waiting for something. At last, their leader, the older woman from the barn, stepped forward again. She bowed her head slightly. My name is Saraya, she said. We are grateful, human. Marcus didn't answer. He simply nodded, signaling her to continue. Saraya took a slow breath. We were from the colony of Velra, a peaceful place, until they came. Her voice cracked. One of the other widows placed a hand on her shoulder. The Bone Collectors, Marcus said in a low voice. All 11 froze when they heard the name from his mouth. Some flinched. Some began to tremble. You know them? One whispered. Marcus's jaw tightened. I fought them. Long ago. A heavy, cold silence filled the room. The widows exchanged looks, fear mixed with a strange kind of relief. If anyone could protect them, it might be him. But Marcus didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a man dragged back into a past he had run from. Saraya continued, voice soft but filled with pain. They attacked our colony without warning. They don't want resources. They don't want land. They want... She hesitated, eyes watering. They want bodies. The youngest, they believe widows carry the morning light, a spirit energy they collect for rituals. They killed our husbands. Then they came for us. Marcus clenched his fists. The Bone Collectors were worse than raiders, worse than soldiers. They were predators. How did you escape? He asked. One widow answered with a trembling voice. We didn't escape. We were left behind. Hidden by our own people during evacuation. They told us to run toward human territory. They said humans were brave. Humans were different. Another added, We followed every rumor we heard, until someone said a human war hero lived alone in the far plains. A man the collectors feared. Marcus felt a chill run through him. Feared him? He didn't know whether to laugh or to feel sick. He shook his head. "I'm not a hero," he said quietly. Soraya looked at him with tired, knowing eyes. "Maybe not to yourself, human, but to someone. Once, you must have been." The words hit deeper than Marcus expected. He turned away, pretending to check the heater, but inside, something old and painful was waking up. Memories of screams, battles, and "we'll figure out the rest in the morning." This time, they obeyed. The widows walked. Marcus stood near the doorway, watching them until the last one entered. For a moment, he felt the strange sensation of having a house full again. He hadn't felt that in years. When they finally disappeared into the room, Marcus turned off the lights and sat on the old sofa. But sleep didn't come. His mind kept replaying the widow's words. The collectors. "They're hunting us. Someone said you could protect us." Marcus rubbed his face with both hands. He didn't want this. He wanted silence. He wanted peace. He wanted distance from everything that reminded him of war. But fate had brought 11 widows to his doorstep, widows hunted by the same monsters he once fought. And deep inside, a voice he thought he had. "You know they will come. You know they won't stop. You know you can't walk away from this." Marcus looked through the window. The ranch was dark and quiet, but something felt off. Too quiet. Too still. As if the land itself was holding its breath. He stood up slowly, before going to bed. He did something he hadn't done in many years. He opened a wooden chest under his bed. Inside was his old weapon, a compact plasma rifle with scratches, dents, and dried marks from forgotten battles. Marcus ran his fingers along the metal. It felt cold, heavy, and painfully familiar. Outside, the wind howled through the dry fields. Inside, Marcus made his decision. Whether he liked it or not, the widows were now under his roof, under his protection. And if the bone collectors came, they would find the ghost captain waiting. The next morning arrived quietly, but something in the air felt different. Marcus woke before sunrise, out of habit. Years of military discipline stayed with him, even if everything else faded. He stepped outside the house, the cold air biting his skin. The sky was still dark purple, waiting for the sun. The ranch looked normal. But Marcus sensed something wrong. The silence was too heavy. Even the birds that usually sat on the old fences were gone. Marcus walked toward the barn, checking the area with trained eyes. Footprints? Broken wires? Anything out of place? He didn't see anything at first, but then something caught his eye. A strange mark on the ground near the fence. A long, deep pattern in the dirt. Like something sharp had scraped across it. Marcus crouched down. The pattern wasn't made by an animal. It wasn't human. It was something else entirely. His chest tightened. He had seen this before, on distant battlefields, in destroyed colonies. In places where the bone collectors passed through. He whispered, "No. Not this soon." Before he could study it further, he felt eyes watching him. Marcus turned sharply. At the house window. One of the widows was staring at him, the youngest one. Her large, silver-blue eyes were full of fear, as if she sensed something too. When Marcus looked back at her, she quickly pulled the curtain closed. Marcus scanned the entire ranch again. They're close. Too close. He walked back inside. Inside the house, the widows were awake now, sitting together on the floor. Their tired faces were calmer than last night, but their bodies still carried tension, like prey waiting for danger they know is coming. Soraya, the leader, stood up when Marcus entered. She looked at him carefully. "You saw something," she said quietly. Marcus didn't answer right away. He didn't want to scare them, but lying wouldn't help. "Yes," he finally replied. "Tracks, not far from the fence." The widows exchanged frightened glances. One began whispering in a trembling voice, "They found us." "They already found us?" Marcus raised a hand. "Maybe not. Maybe they were just passing through." But Soraya shook her head. "No, they always follow the scent of morning. Widows are valuable to them." Marcus hated the word valuable in this context. Valuable meant hunted. Valuable meant taken. Valuable meant death. He crossed his arms. "What else can you tell me?" he asked. Soraya hesitated, then spoke. "The bone collectors don't travel randomly. They move in packs like wolves. They track us through the energy left behind when someone loses their mate. Widows shine to them, even in the darkest places." Marcus frowned. "I have sensors all around the ranch, none of them triggered." "They move between them," Soraya whispered. "They hunt without sound, without smell, without heat. Your machines cannot see them." Marcus felt a surge of anger. Machines he could trust. Humans he could predict. But these creatures were different, shadows that moved with purpose. One of the widows suddenly gasped. "Look." Marcus turned. The youngest widow pointed at the door. A thin line of dust was falling from the top of the doorframe, as if something had lightly scraped against the outside wall moments ago. Marcus moved immediately. He grabbed his old plasma rifle from the table, loaded it with trembling hands, not from fear, but from rising adrenaline, and opened the door in one swift motion. Outside? Nothing. Just the empty ranch. The wind, the silent fields. But Marcus didn't relax. His eyes followed the dust trail on the ground near the door, leading toward the barn, then disappearing abruptly as if the creature simply vanished into air. "That's their style," Marcus muttered. "They were here." He turned to the widows. "We need to strengthen the ranch now." Preparations begin. Marcus spent the next hours reinforcing the house and training the widows on basic survival. The youngest widow, named Lyra, watched him closely, fascinated by the human who worked without fear. He set up motion traps, backup energy grids, and manual alarms across the property. The widows helped, carrying supplies, following directions, doing whatever they could, but fear never left their eyes. Around noon, while Marcus was adjusting an external sensor near the barn, Soraya approached him. Quietly she asked, "Why are you helping us?" "You didn't have to." Marcus didn't stop working as he answered, "Because someone should." Soraya lowered her gaze. "Most humans fear our kind, but you do not fear us." Marcus paused. He looked at the 11 widows, all tired, all hunted, all carrying invisible wounds. "I fear many things," Marcus said, "but not you." Soraya closed her eyes for a moment, grateful, but also sad. "You don't understand," she whispered. "We didn't only come for refuge. We came because..." Before she finished, a loud metallic clang echoed across the ranch. Everyone froze. The widows turned pale instantly. Marcus rushed to the fence line. One of his metal traps had been triggered, and the steel bar was crushed. Not cut, not bent, crushed, as if something with enormous strength had grabbed it in passing. Marcus felt a cold chill crawl up his back. "They're testing the defenses," he said. Soraya trembled. "They always do. That before they attack." Marcus checked the crushed metal again. "This wasn't a warning," he said slowly. "This was a message." Nightfall approaches as the sun disappeared behind the horizon. The widows gathered near the house, sticking close to the warm light. Marcus stood outside with his rifle. The sky darkened. The wind died. The ranch became too quiet again. Then in the far distance, a faint clicking sound echoed. Not human. Not animal. Marcus raised his rifle. "They're coming," he whispered. And this time, they weren't alone. The clicking sound in the distance faded, but the fear it left behind stayed heavy in the air. The widows stood together near the house, their eyes wide and shining with terror. No one spoke. No one moved. Even the wind stopped blowing, as if the land itself knew. Something dangerous had awakened. Marcus lowered his rifle slowly. "They're scouting us," he said. "Not attacking yet." Soraya hugged her arms around herself. "They always scout before they strike. They like fear. They like the silence before the scream." Marcus didn't react to the words, but inside his mind was already calculating. Planning, rearranging the ranch like a battlefield. He had fought the bone collectors once. He knew how they hunted, how they cornered their prey, how they never rushed. They waited. They watched. They enjoyed the slow kill. Not this time. Marcus looked at the widows. "You're safe with me, but I need your help." And that was the moment the transformation began. The ranch becomes a fortress. Marcus moved like a man who never forgot the war. His body remembered every motion, every tactic. For the first time in years, he felt alive, not peaceful, but focused. Sharp, dangerous. He spread a large map on the table. A hand-drawn layout of the ranch. "We have 3 weak points," he said. The south fence, the barn entrance, and the open field behind the house. The widows gathered around the table. Lyra, the youngest, touched the edge of the map with trembling fingers. How do we stop them?" she asked quietly. Marcus pointed at the barn. "We start here. They'll try to use it as a hiding place." He walked to the barn with 2 widows following him. He placed small metal spheres inside pressure mines he built from old equipment. The widows watched in awe. "You made these?" one asked softly. Marcus nodded. "When you live alone long enough, you learn to build things you hope you never use." Next, he installed high-frequency sensors along the fence line. Not perfect, but enough to alert him if something crossed. He set up trip wires coated with ultraviolet powder, invisible to human eyes, but glowing bright under his visor. He dug shallow trenches near the backfield and filled them with sharp metal spikes. Every step was precise, every motion careful. The widows could only watch, amazed at how one man could rebuild an entire battlefield overnight. Unexpected strength. As Marcus worked near the water tank, Soraya approached him quietly. "Human, we can help more than you think." Marcus raised a brow. "How?" Soraya touched the ground lightly. The soil beneath her hand glowed faintly, a soft blue pulse that spread for a moment before fading again. "We don't fight like you," she said, "but we feel the earth. We sense vibrations. We can detect movement under the soil, and bone collectors love to burrow." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "That gives us an advantage," he said. "A big one." Soraya nodded. "So teach us how to protect your home," she whispered, "and we will protect you." Marcus didn't say it out loud, but something about her words felt strange. Protect him? He hadn't been protected by anyone in years, but he didn't argue. They worked together, human strategy and alien instincts blending into one defense system. By late afternoon, the ranch no longer looked peaceful. It looked ready for a storm. The Perdimundi Grundeglug. Invisible enemy. As night returned, the widows finished placing light beacons around the house. Marcus stood outside, scanning the horizon. The fields were dark except for the faint flicker of the beacons. Then he heard it. Soft, faint, wrong. A scraping sound under the ground. Lyra, standing beside him, gasped. "They're tunneling," she whispered. Marcus didn't hesitate. "Everyone inside." Now, the widows rushed toward the house. Marcus stayed outside, rifle ready, eyes locked on the soil beneath his feet. The scraping grew louder, then stopped completely. Marcus's heart thudded once in his chest. "That's not good," he muttered. The ground was silent again. Too silent. Then thump. The soil near the barn bulged upward, like something huge was pushing from below. Marcus didn't wait. He fired a plasma shot directly at the bulge. The explosion lit the field blue for a second, and a shrieking sound echoed across the ranch, sharp, unnatural, furious. Marcus shouted toward the house. "They're here!" The widows pressed against the windows, trembling. Soraya whispered, "This is only the beginning." Training for survival, Marcus entered the house again, sweat running down his neck. "We don't have much time," he said. "If they tested one spot, they'll test the others." The widows stood in a small half-circle, listening. "I'm going to teach you how to defend yourselves," Marcus said. "You don't need to fight. You only need to survive and warn me." Soraya nodded. "We will do whatever it takes." Marcus took a deep breath and began teaching. How to move silently, how to stay low, how to hide behind solid walls, how to use the alarm sticks he built, how to use sound to distract enemies, how to avoid eye contact with bone collectors. Their hypnotic trick. The widows practiced every move, even though their hands shook. Lyra asked quietly, "Human, do you think we will live through this?" Marcus looked at her, at all of them, and answered without hesitation, "Yes, because I'm not letting them take you." The widows looked at him with something new in their eyes. Not fear. Trust. Nightfall. Round one approaches, as midnight approached. Marcus stood outside again, gripping his rifle. Behind him, the widows stayed inside, watching through the windows like silent guardians. The air grew colder, the sky darker, the ground still. Then a distant, slow clicking echoed across the fields. But this time, it wasn't one creature. It was many. Marcus stepped forward, breath steady. They're closing in. And from the shadows of the distant hills, 12 glowing eyes blinked back at him. Not one enemy, not a scout. A hunting pack. The first real assault was about to begin. Night came heavy and black, pressing down on the ranch like a thick blanket. Not a single star shone in the sky. Even the moon stayed hidden, as if the heavens didn't want to witness what was coming. Marcus stood in the open field with his plasma rifle steady in his hands. His breaths were slow, controlled. He had faced war, monsters, and chaos before, but this was different. This time, 11 innocent lives were counting on him. Behind him, inside the house, the widows stayed close together. Their glowing eyes watched him from the windows, terrified, but trusting. The clicking grew louder. Slow, steady, hungry. Marcus's finger tightened on the trigger. Then, the first shape appeared. A tall, twisted figure stepped out of the darkness. Its limbs were long and thin, bending in unnatural directions. Its skin looked like pale armor, cracked and scarred. The creature tilted its head, sniffing the air like a predator finding the scent of prey. Behind it appeared another. Then another. Then 6 more, a full hunting group. Marcus whispered under his breath, "Too many." Still, he did not back away. The lead bone collector let out a raspy growl, a sound that felt like broken glass inside the ears. Its glowing eyes locked onto Marcus, studying him, recognizing him. They remembered the ghost captain. Marcus raised his rifle. "You want them?" he said quietly. "You'll have to go through me." And he opened fire. The battle begins. A bright blue plasma bolt tore through the night, striking the lead creature's shoulder. It staggered but didn't fall. The others screeched, a sound so sharp, the widows inside the house covered their ears in pain. Then the pack charged. Fast. Too fast. 4 collectors rushed toward Marcus. He fired again, hitting one in the leg, knocking it into the dirt. Another lunged at him from the left, claws wide, mouth open. Marcus rolled aside, narrowly avoiding a slash that dug deep into the soil. He shot point blank at its chest, the bolt sending the creature flying backward into a fence post that shattered on impact. But more were coming. 2 bone collectors ran along the ground, while 3 others slipped into the soil, burrowing beneath the surface like enormous insects. Marcus cursed under his breath. "Soraya, underground!" Inside, Soraya pressed her hands to the floorboards. Her eyes glowed blue as she felt the vibrations. 3 heading for the barn. She shouted, "Fast!" Marcus sprinted toward the barn without wasting a second. Behind him, the widows whispered prayers. not for themselves, but for the human who fought alone outside. Marcus's traps activate. The moment Marcus reached the barn, the soil burst upward, a bone collector erupting from the ground like a nightmare come alive. But Marcus had planned for this. The creature landed on a pressure mine. Boom! A wave of light and dust filled the air. The explosion threw the creature sideways. Its armored chest cracked open. Two more monsters climbed out of the tunnel, screeching angrily. Marcus shot one through the throat, then another through the eyes. He breathed hard, sweat rolling down his temples. But he didn't let fear slow him. He ran back toward the house and saw something that made his blood turn cold. One bone collector had reached the porch. Its long arm clawed at the wooden wall, leaving deep cuts. It was inches away from the door where Lyra and two other widows huddled. Marcus fired instantly. The plasma shot tore through the creature's spine. It collapsed with a screech, its claws twitching as it died. Lyra gasped, her hands shaking. Marcus shouted, "Stay away from the windows. Don't look at them." Because bone collectors had a hypnotic trick, meet their eyes too long, and terror froze your body. The widows backed away immediately. The house under siege, the ground trembled again. Two more collectors burst from beneath the back of the house, attacking the walls with brutal force. The entire structure shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. The widows screamed. Marcus ran toward the back. "Hey!" he shouted, drawing their attention. One collector turned, but too late. Marcus slammed the butt of his rifle into its jaw, then fired a bolt straight into its mouth. It collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. The second one lunged at him, claws out. Marcus blocked the strike with his arm guard, but the force knocked him onto the ground. The creature pinned him down, drooling a thick black liquid as it opened its jaws wide. Its breath was cold and rotten. Marcus grabbed the fallen metal rod beside him and rammed it into the creature's throat. It thrashed violently, screeching as the rod jammed deeper. Marcus pushed with all his strength until the creature fell limp. He staggered to his feet, breathing heavily. But the fight wasn't over, not even close. Alpha arrives. The clicking stopped. Everything went silent. Then, out of the shadows emerged a creature larger than all the others. Armored, scarred, eyes burning with red light. Soraya's voice trembled from inside the house. That is their Alpha." Marcus didn't blink, didn't move, didn't breathe. The Alpha stepped forward slowly, cracking its long fingers. And then, it spoke, not in words, not in language. In a deep, echoing growl. A sound Marcus recognized from the war. The Alpha knew him and wanted revenge. It raised its claws, and the ground around the ranch began to shake. Marcus whispered, "Round 2. And the real nightmare began. The Alpha stood tall in the moonless night, its enormous shadow stretching across the ranch like a living nightmare. Its red glowing eyes locked onto Marcus, recognizing the old soldier who once destroyed half its hunting pack years ago. The wind stopped. The field became silent. Every widow inside the house held her breath. Marcus tightened his grip on his plasma rifle. This was no scout, no raider, no random monster. This was the one creature he hoped he would never face again. The Alpha Bone Collector, the leader of their entire clan. It took one slow step forward and the ground trembled beneath its weight. The air itself felt heavier, like gravity thickened around Marcus. Inside the house, the widows whispered prayers in their own language. Lyra pressed her hands to her chest as if holding her heart together. Soraya watched with tears shining in her eyes. "This is the one who destroyed our home," she whispered, "and the one who hunted us." Marcus didn't look back at them. He didn't need to. He already knew he wasn't fighting only for himself tonight. The Alpha charges without warning. The Alpha leaped forward, crossing half the distance in a single monstrous jump. Marcus rolled aside just in time. The Alpha landed where he had stood, The impact sending shockwaves through the ranch. Dust exploded into the air. Marcus fired a plasma bolt straight into its chest. Direct hit. The Alpha staggered, but only for a second. Then it straightened, as if the shot was nothing more than an insult. Damn! Marcus muttered. The Alpha roared, a deafening sound that made even the walls of the house shake. 3 widows fell to their knees from the vibration, clutching their ears in pain. Soraya shouted, "Do not look at its eyes." Marcus already knew. Staring too long at those red eyes was death. It was their hypnotic weapon, terror that froze the heart. Marcus kept moving, but the Alpha was faster. Much faster. Close combat. It slashed at Marcus with claws longer than knives. Marcus blocked with his arm guard, sparks flying as metal hit bone. The force threw him backward into the dirt. His ribs screamed in pain. The Alpha charges without warning. The Alpha leaped forward, crossing half the distance in a single monstrous jump. Marcus rolled aside, just in time. The Alpha landed where he had stood, the impact sending shockwaves through the ranch. Dust exploded into the air. Marcus fired a plasma bolt straight into its chest. Direct hit. The Alpha staggered, but only for a second. Then it straightened, as if the shot was nothing more than an insult. Damn! Marcus muttered. The Alpha roared, a deafening sound that made even the walls of the house shake. 3 widows fell to their knees from the vibration, clutching their ears in pain. Soraya shouted, "Do not look at its eyes." Marcus already knew. Staring too long at those red eyes was death. It was their hypnotic weapon, terror that froze the heart. Marcus kept moving, but the Alpha was faster. Much faster. Close combat. It slashed at Marcus with claws longer than knives. Marcus blocked with his arm guard, sparks flying as metal hit bone. The force threw him backward into the dirt. His ribs screamed in pain. The Alpha charged again. Marcus kicked off the ground, sliding under its legs and firing upward, hitting the soft area under its jaw. The creature roared in agony, black liquid spilling from the wound, but it didn't fall. Instead, it whipped its massive tail around, striking Marcus across the chest. Marcus flew several meters and crashed into a wooden fence that shattered on impact. Inside the house, the widow screamed his name. Lyra cried, "He can't fight that alone." Soraya grabbed her shoulder. "He must, if he falls." "We fall." The widow's stand. Marcus struggled to stand, coughing. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. His ribs felt cracked, but he didn't stop. Just as the Alpha leapt again, ready to finish him, a loud ringing sound echoed through the night. The widows had thrown Marcus's alarm sticks, the metal rods that produced high-frequency bursts. The sound struck the Alpha directly in its sensitive ear ridges. It stumbled, shaking its head violently. Marcus took the chance. He fired 3 fast shots at the creature's legs, slowing it down. Soraya shouted from the doorway, "We can distract it." "But you must kill it." Marcus didn't want them involved. But he didn't have a choice tonight. Stay behind the walls. He yelled, "Don't leave the house." The widows nodded, gripping the rest of the alarm rods tightly. The turning point, the Alpha roared in fury at being distracted. It slammed its claws into the ground and burrowed underground in one violent motion. The soil trembled. Marcus's eyes widened. No, he ran toward the house. The ground beneath the widows began to crack. "Move!" Marcus shouted. The widows scattered just as the Alpha burst from the floorboards, splintering the wood and sending debris flying across the room. The house shook like a dying beast. The widows screamed. Marcus jumped through the open doorway, rolling across the floor and grabbing a burning lantern that had fallen during the chaos. The Alpha turned toward the widows. Its eyes glowed brighter. Its claws lifted. Marcus didn't think. He acted. He threw the lantern with perfect aim. It hit the Alpha's exposed wound beneath its jaw. The flame spread, burning into the creature's soft tissue. The Alpha roared, loud enough to shake the entire ranch. Soraya shouted, "Marcus! Now!" The final blow. Marcus ran at full speed. Ignoring the pain in his ribs, he leaped onto the Alpha's back. Grabbing one of its bony ridge spikes, the creature bucked wildly. Marcus held on, barely using one hand. He pulled a heavy metal spike from his belt, one he had sharpened earlier for a trap, and drove it into the burning wound under the jaw. The Alpha screamed. Tried to shake him off. Marcus pushed harder. The widows joined in, all 11 of them, standing together, chanting in their language. Their voices created a strange harmonic wave that disoriented the Alpha, weakening its senses. Marcus felt the creature's strength fading. One last push with a final roar. The Alpha collapsed to the ground, shaking the entire ranch. Dust settled. Silence. Return. Marcus lay beside the creature, chest heaving, vision blurry. He had won, but he couldn't stand. The widows save him. Lyra ran to him first, dropping to her knees. "Marcus, stay awake." Soraya and the others rushed to him, lifting him gently. "You protected us," Soraya whispered. "Now let us protect you." Marcus closed his eyes. For years, he lived alone. For years, he fought his demons in silence. But tonight, 11 widows surrounded him with tears, gratitude, and trembling hands. He wasn't alone anymore. The night of the battle passed, but its echoes stayed in the air like fading thunder. The Alpha's massive body lay still in the field, its cracked armor cooling under the dim morning light. Smoke from the lantern fire drifted slowly across the ranch. Inside the house, the widows worked quietly around Marcus, placing warm cloths on his wounds and whispering gentle healing chants in their native tongue. Marcus lay on an old sofa, his eyes half open, fighting sleep. His ribs hurt, his arm was bruised, and every breath felt heavy. But he was alive. Soraya knelt beside him, her eyes soft. "You should rest," she said. Marcus exhaled slowly. "I'm fine." Lyra shook her head. "No, you're not. You saved all of us." The widows gathered around him, forming a circle, not out of duty, but instinct. Their voices hummed softly in a healing rhythm, a sound Marcus had never heard before. Warmth spread through his body, like sunlight closing an old wound. After several minutes, Marcus's breathing steadied, and some of the pain faded. He opened his eyes fully for the first time. They were all smiling. It was new, strange, comforting. He wasn't sure what to do with warmth this soft. The ranch after the storm. Over the next few days, the ranch returned to life. The widows helped rebuild the broken fence. They repaired the floorboards destroyed by the Fade Alpha. They cleaned the barn, checked the traps, and fed the animals. Marcus tried to help too, but every time he lifted something heavy, 3 widows rushed at him shouting, "No, sit down, or human, you will break again." Eventually, he surrendered and sat on the porch, watching them work. It was the first time in years the ranch felt alive. Lyra planted new flowers near the porch, blue ones from her home planet. She said they only bloom near people who brought peace. Soraya stood with Marcus often, watching the horizon with quiet eyes. "They won't return," she said one morning. Marcus nodded. "I know. You killed their Alpha," she continued. "The rest will scatter. They have no leader now." Marcus didn't feel pride. He didn't feel triumph. He felt relief. Not for himself, but for them. A moment of healing one evening. While the sun painted the sky orange and gold, Marcus walked slowly toward the backfield. His body still ached, but less now. The widows saw him leaving and quietly followed, forming a soft procession behind him. When Marcus reached the field, he stopped. The Alpha's body was still there, half covered by soil and dust. Soraya stepped beside him. "Do you want us to burn it?" she asked gently. Marcus took a long breath. "No, leave it. Let the land take it. That's enough justice." Soraya nodded with respect. The widow stood silently beside Marcus, honoring the moment. In their culture, silence after death was a sacred ritual, a sign of remembering and also of letting go. For the first time since they arrived, Marcus joined them in silence. 11 widows. One tired soldier. All survivors, the porch gathering as darkness fell. The group returned to the house. Marcus sat on the porch, looking at the stars finally visible again. The sky felt peaceful, like the universe was breathing slowly after a storm. One by one, the widows came to sit around him. Lyra sat on the step below him, her hands folded neatly. 2 others sat on the railing. Soraya stood near the door, watching the ranch with calm eyes. Nobody spoke at first. The only sounds were the quiet night breeze, the soft chirping of insects, and the gentle touch of peace settling into the land. After a while, Lyra broke the silence. "Marcus, what will you do now?" Marcus looked at the horizon. For years, he had answered that question with one word: nothing. Because loneliness was all he had left, but tonight felt different. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I don't think I'll be alone anymore." Lyra's eyes brightened. Soraya stepped forward. "We can help with the ranch. We can stay until your strength returns. We owe you that." Marcus shook his head gently. "You don't owe me anything." Soraya smiled, a soft, grateful smile. "We stayed because you saved us, but we will remain because this place finally feels like home." The widows nodded. Some held each other's hands. Some wiped quiet tears. Marcus wasn't sure when it happened. Maybe during the battle. Maybe during the silence afterward. Maybe right this moment. But something shifted inside him, something he thought had died long ago. Belonging, connection, family. New beginning days turned into weeks. The ranch bloomed again. The widows planted new crops and restored broken paths. They built a quiet corner behind the barn to honor their lost husbands. Marcus repaired old equipment he had abandoned years earlier. And slowly, the house wasn't just a shelter anymore. It became a home. Sometimes Marcus would wake up early and find 2 widows already cooking breakfast, whispering and laughing softly. Sometimes he'd walk outside and see Lyra teaching the animals to respond to her gentle chants. Sometimes he'd catch Soraya staring at him with a calm, knowing expression, the look of someone who finally felt safe. One peaceful morning, all 11 widows and Marcus gathered on the porch. The sun was rising, turning the fields gold. Marcus looked around at them, at their faces, their smiles, their hope, and for the first time in many years, he smiled too. Not a small smirk. Not a polite curve of the lips, a real smile. He leaned back. "Bree,